Hey there, War Gamers, Justin Iron Painter here, and today we're going to talk about hobby motivation and inspiration. So for today's T.A.P talk, I thought it might be interesting to have a discussion, however brief or long it may be. We'll see how long I rambled today, but we're going to talk about hobby inspiration and motivation, and where do you find it? How do you look at things? What's your perspective on everyday life when you think about it? And one of the things that I find myself doing, which is a little odd. I'm not sure when I started doing it, but actually I take that back. I think I started doing this after I started trying to seriously consider painting non-metallic metals and blending and doing transitions on models by hand. Not that I do a whole lot of that, but it's something that I aspire to do in paint. One of the things I notice is when you paint something that's hyper-realistic from a certain perspective, it looks right one way, but you're painting something in a flat pane if you're doing it on like a canvas, so it's going to look good from this angle, and then if you turn the canvas, it's going to look weird. That same effect happens to models when you paint that effect. So if you do a non-metallic metal on a cool, gray night, for example, you get those grays and blacks and a little hint of white for the glints of light, and then you look at it from the perspective of the artist painted it where that light source hits and it looks right, and then you turn it, it looks like a dumpster fire because the angles are all wrong. That has caused me to look at things differently in everyday life. So when I'm looking at, like, say, a metal pipe, right? And you're trying to paint non-metallic metal, and you've got like the bright line that goes across the top, and then the mid-tones, and maybe a little bit of green or whatever from the environment or the ground, and then like a black line or something like that, or maybe even like a bright, the mid-tones, maybe the black line, and then somewhere in there another slightly brighter line because the curvature, right? Those things happen. In real life, we take it for granted. So you're looking at something that's metallic, and you just know, okay, someone asks you, well, what color is that? Oh, it's gold, it's silver, it's whatever. Is it really? You know it's gold and silver, but if you had to take a photograph of it and you put that in Photoshop and you took the little paint swatch tool thing and you were trying to determine what colors were on it, you're going to take that gold and you're going to find yellows and browns and tans and maybe even black. Then you do that with silver and you might find like whites and grays and blues and black. And then, the colors that your eyes see that create what looks like silver, what you know to be silver and metallic and metal, it's a collage, a combination of colors. So I find myself looking at cars when I'm pumping gas, and I'm like, that's a blue car, but how would I paint that if I wanted to, like, encapsulate? Is that a word? To capture. Let's say capture. Encapsulate might be right too. I think it's right. Like to do something. My vocabulary's not good. I try to use my SAT words during my streams, and especially when I converse with my fiance and also Austin from DRD. I try really hard to use big words. They don't always land. But as I told Austin the other day, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I'll try and use big words. Most of the time they don't land, but that one time they do, it's pertinent. So anyways, back on point here. I go and I'm looking, let's say I'm pumping gas, and I'm looking at the car behind me, and let's say it's blue. And it's sunlight outside, and I'm seeing the white edge of that bright light on this shiny, buffed, polished car, this waxed polished car. And then you've got the blue, it's transitioning down to black, but on the side you get a reflection, so you get a little bit of green from the bushes. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, how would I paint that? Because at first, I would be like, here's this vehicle, I've done my gradient, my zenithal highlight, and then I've sprayed blue down the side and a lighter blue from the edge, and I've got the transition from dark blue to light blue, and then I look at it and I'm like, okay, I have created a blue surface. Is it look hyper-realistic on the tabletop? If that's what I'm going for. That vehicle does not have white lines painted on it, it's the light reflecting. You as the artist have control of putting those fake areas on the model that would be replicated or draw inspiration from the real world. So like the vehicle may not have white lines on the bright edges where the light's hitting the peak. You could do that with your airbrush on your model, or put a really bright, crisp edge highlight on it to give the illusion that the bright light's hitting it. Now of course, if you're looking at that car from this perspective where I'm pumping gas and I'm like doo, and then I look and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, and I'm going through this process. If I go to walk inside to buy a drink or something, as my perspective changes, the transitions in the colors that I'm seeing on that car also change. That's not the case on your minis. The minis, if you paint them to look good from one perspective, they obviously don't look as good when you rotate them. But looking at those things in everyday life, it gives me inspiration. I start thinking about it. Like if I wanted to do this on a model, how could I replicate it? How does the techniques that I'm learning and employing in painting, how does that relate to the real world? How can I take what I'm seeing and put that into my art? So I look at cars, I think of that. I look at metal stuff all the time. If I see some type of shiny metal pole or a metal surface, beat up, polished, whatever, I'm always trying to get inspiration, because non-metallic metal is such a hard effect to really master and to do. The non-metallic stuff in general, it's a hard thing to grasp. True metallic metals could be pretty tough too. Working with regular metallics to make them look like real metallics, versus taking non-metallics to give the illusion of the shiny surface, but like one is using metallic paints and one's giving the illusion of metallic paints, and it's really weird going back and forth. So those are two things that are, elude me. Is it elude? Elusive. Yeah, elude me. I think that's right. I think elude is to like reference something. Elude to get away. Vocabulary lesson, folks. That's what we're doing today. So I look at those things and I try and draw inspiration from it. But one of the other things I've noticed is, I gave you guys the car example. I'm looking at the transitions, the bright white light that's going across the top, and the shiny effect. But one of the other things that I find myself doing in everyday life, I'm driving, right? So you're driving. I look at the reflection on vehicles, like the sun hitting the light, the clouds, the blueness, reflecting on windshields, things of that. Like how would you paint that effect on a model? Whether it's like a chrome model that's going to reflect the sun and the clouds in the sky and the ground, and you want to paint that on the model to make it look like it's reflecting, or windows. That's really interesting, to do that. But more importantly, the coolest thing that I see when I drive, it's sunset and dusk. And think about this. Think about this next time you're outside, whether you're walking, you're going out to eat, and you happen to be out there in the evening, right as the sun is starting to set, or you're getting off work, whenever it may be, or maybe you're listening to this and you want to see what I see. Go for a walk. Determine about the time the sun's going to start setting. Not as soon as it sets, like it's starting to set. It's not dusk yet, but you got like an hour window or so, and it's going to start doing this. Take a walk. Go to the park. Go somewhere really nice outside. Somewhere safe. But as I'm driving and I'm looking, because I'm from North Carolina, so we have a lot of trees and really nice scenery. It's a beautiful state. Say what you want about North Carolina, but it's got some nice scenery. But I'm starting to ramble here. So as I'm driving, sunset going into dusk, seeing the color transitions as the sun hits the horizon, and you've got the blue transitioning into like the oranges and the reds and the deep pinky red at the colors you get there. Maybe I've got it reversed in the order. Maybe it's like bright orange transitioning into like pinky reds into the gray clouds. I may be misremembering exactly the transition gradient there, but I see that and I'm like, how would I paint that? How do you do that? How do I do a transition from like yellowy orange to pinky reddish, dark reddish into like this gray blue into black? How would you do it? What if I wanted to do that on a model? What if I just liked that effect and I wanted my model to look like that? How do I do it? What colors would I use? How would I blend them? How would I thin those paints? And then that's sunset. As you watch that, it's a very, very quick thing. It's subtle, but when you look at it and watch, it's a lot quicker than you think. We tend these days to take the beauty of the world for granted. We know that a sunset over the ocean is gorgeous. A sunrise is gorgeous. We know a waterfall is beautiful. Seeing the leaves fall on the side of the tree-covered mountains and hills. We know all of that's gorgeous, but we don't stop to look at it. And through the lenses of an artist, the way that I look at a sunset is very different. It's very interesting. And I like to think about how I would paint a sunset, right? Like replicate it on a model. Now, if you're watching that sunset, you're seeing all these colors that I'm talking about, and you hit dusk as the sun's right there, and there's a little hint. you get all these gorgeous colors with that like orange fading into like that extreme hot looking off red. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a pink red. It's really pretty. And that red is transitioning into like a gray blue that's transitioning into like dark blue black. And you get that boom, like a Bob Ross scenery at night. And I look at it and I'm like, how would you transition from black to blue to gray blue to red to yellow and like get that seamless transition? And then I start thinking, this is like art in nature, some art in nature. How does this inspire me to paint models? And then it gets me thinking, now am I ever going to be able to paint a sunset on a model? Maybe if I wanted to try, I don't know why I would. But looking at those gradients that I'm seeing in everyday life on those sunsets makes me think about how I would improve my gradients and my transitions on my models, right? Thinking about looking at the leaves falling in fall, the colors you see, that gets me beyond painting. It gets me into like basing. What could I do to encapsulate this scene on my Mini? I want it to be standing there next to that tree, or give the illusion that just behind the Mini where the base stops, there's a tree. You see some leaves on the ground, but just right out of view, right beyond where the base of the Mini ends, there's a cave, there's rocks. That narrative. How can I take what I'm seeing and put that on a Mini? It doesn't even have to be necessarily hyper realistic, but getting that inspiration, like letting yourself appreciate nature and then try and take the beauty and the art of every scene that you see and letting that motivate you when you're painting. Maybe you can't replicate those effects. You know, maybe some of us just aren't made out to be hyper-realistic artists. Maybe it's just hard to do on a 3D surface. And then, you know, maybe you take this inspiration, you go do canvas painting. That's cool. But connecting with nature and letting it motivate you and encourage you and bolster what you're doing is something that I never stop to think about. It's cliche, but we don't often stop to smell the roses. We don't stop to look at that sunset. Even if you're driving, you're facing the horizon. Drive safe, but let your mind wander and enjoy the way that looks and how it makes you feel. Now, outside of nature, where else do you guys get your inspiration and your motivation? Do you look at nature? You look at the clouds, the sky, the sunsets, the sunrises, the change in the seasons, the snow on the ground, the waterfalls, and the tides. Do you look at these things and then do you take motivation from that, inspiration? Outside of nature, where else do you find it? One of the places that I find inspiration, I love it. I sometimes hate it. I talk about it on Instagram all the time. Is that it's Instagram. I talked about this during the Fear Tap Talk, episode 1 of my Tap Talks. I talked about fear, you know, and that was one of the things that bothered me with Instagram and Facebook. Looking at other people's work that now motivates me, but seeing their crazy freehand, the crazy non-metallic metals, the hyper-realism that they achieve, and then going, what crossroads do they go to? What demon do they talk to get that talent? I could never do that. But coming to terms with the fact that I can do some of it, I can grow and try and become better, I can be a better artist today than I was yesterday, but accepting the fact that maybe I won't ever be as good. It's possible. You know, maybe I could be better. Who knows? But looking at what they do and finding inspiration and motivation, you know, like, okay, you know, like I watch, I follow Sam Lins. You guys, if you don't know who Sam Lins is, we need to rectify that problem right now. But I look at some of the stuff he does, the crazy blends he gets, and I'm like, can I do that? I can do that. Surely I can try. You know, I get motivation. This stuff doesn't look as good, you know, as is. But now, instead of finding myself kind of demoralized or unmotivated, I'm excited to try new stuff. Looking at seeing, you know, the things he posts on Instagram. There's a couple Polish or German guys I follow on Instagram. I can't remember your names. I know you're not watching my stream or my YouTube. If you were, Yay. But I doubt it. But one of them starts with an R. Rigaldo, hell, I don't know. So good. There's another one that's name starts with a D who posts a lot of stuff on YouTube, but YouTube, Facebook, the freehand that they do, it's so beautiful. I follow Angel Giraldez. He's the reason I want to try out the Infinity, the Harder and Steinbeck Infinity. I look at him. He looks so happy. That's his face. It's not even about the art for some of the photos. You see his face and he looks so excited. And then I go, you look happy, man. I'm gonna paint some models too. So I find that motivation, but also looking at his art, looking at what he does, it's very exciting. It gets me wanting to paint stuff. I follow Jason Craze from Slow Fuse. He's so exciting. He's not what you'd expect. If I was showing someone outside of the hobby, I was like, come go look at this guy. Look at Slow Fuse Gaming. Look at Jason Craze. And they see this guy with like a little bit of facial hair. He's got some tattoos. Then he speaks and he sounds normal. And not that people with tattoos don't sound normal, but like if he was on the phone with you, you'd never expect his look, right? You wouldn't expect that's an artist. And then you're like, oh, this guy's normal like me. He just might paint better than I do. But then it makes it easier to connect. I don't know if that makes sense, but the human aspect of what people do in the art world makes me appreciate what they do even more, because they're not a robot. They make mistakes. They nail an effect really good and it's perfect to them. And then I experience that, and that makes me want to paint, and that gets me really excited. I follow Aaron Lovejoy on Facebook, Liz Hunt, Elizabeth Beckley, and I'm not sure if they're all three involved. They probably are, but they do the Miniature Monthly. I follow that stuff, watching what they do, like seeing their photos, especially I think it's Elizabeth Beckley, I think does a lot of the chibi models, her transitions, the blends, like it's stuff I wouldn't expect on these little like cartoony characters, but it's so good and it's a different style. So we'll go from like the chibi to the Sam Lins, which does a lot of things. And then on the hyperrealism side, the Russian Polish dudes that do all the crazy freehand. And I look at this and I'm like, there's arts on different ends of the spectrum, and I get something out of that motivates me. Like, okay, I look at the chibi model, it doesn't look as hyper realistic as some of those Polish guys, right? But the blends and the gradients are just as good. If you took those effects and you applied those to doing something hyper realistic, I'm sure Elizabeth Beckley could do that. I'm sure she does, and I just haven't seen it, or I've seen it and I don't think about it. Actually, she might do Kingdom Death too, and I'm pretty sure it's either her or Liz Hunt. One of them, they do that, and it's hyper realistic. I think I've seen it before. I think they did it for Crystal Brush last year. I see so much art, it's hard to remember, but that's the point. Like, you'll see this one side, and you'll see the painting effects, and you don't always attribute that those same techniques can be used on something else. So, talking about sunsets, talking about non-metallic metal, and looking at things in the real world, those things that I look at and I'm like, how would I achieve that gradient? The same effect that you would do to blend that on a canvas might be the same thing you would do on a model, with the thing of the paints and the glazing and the wet blending, all those things. It's same techniques, different medium, different paints, different colors, but it's similar techniques. So how does that relate to you? How do you use that as inspiration to make you want to grow? And these are some of the more professional artists that I follow, right? Now, there's plenty on Instagram I follow whose names I can't recall, but I follow their work. But probably the apex of what motivates me, gets me inspiration, is following people. I'm gonna pick on a few guys from the Garrison here. Following people from the Garrison. So watching Kenny Wilkinson, posting stuff. That guy's posting stuff all the damn time. He's always doing commission work. He's always doing something. He's always so happy and excited about what he's doing. I love looking at that. Clan Wolf, Karinsky, David. He's posting conversions all the time. Sometimes, David, you're a little bit down on yourself with your art, man. But I think we all have a way of being our own worst critic. And when I compliment you guys, it's sincere, and when in your regard, Mr. Wolf, you got some pretty good conversions, man. Like, we all have room to grow on painting. We all have room to grow on conversions, but that's one area you should definitely give yourself a pat on the back more. Not that your painting's bad, I'm not saying that, but like, everyone's got a technique or a thing they do really good, and some of your conversions are pretty damn awesome, So looking at stuff like that from him, looking at stuff from Voren, from the group, watching Daff, Justin, watching him paint power weapon effects on his space wolves for the second time, whatever he's doing, and him getting excited from watching a tutorial and just trying something new, watching him post photos of the D&D mini that he's painted. For a friend of his who requested, I got the impression from Daff, he was really excited that someone wanted him to paint a mini for them to represent them. That's exciting and invigorating to see you guys living your art and your excitement. I think it's RGE Wolf has posted a bunch of stuff. The guy the other day in our garrison that posted up the tree dude who, the names aren't right in front of me and I'm sorry, but he posted the tree guy, the Sylvaneth guy from Age of Sigmar, and he was, or Nightvault, whatever, the games, the fantasy stuff. And he was like, I'm scared to work on the axe. I was like, dude, the model looks great. Why are you afraid? And he's like, I might mess with the model. I'm like, you're not going to mess with the model. Worst case scenario, you got to redo that axe a few times, but the model's not going to paint itself. You got to do it. This model looks damn good. Finish it. Don't let it be unfinished. Finish that model. And then by the end of the stream, he's like, all right, I'm going to do this. Seeing you guys get excited to paint. Whether it's your first model, which is exciting because for me it's a vicarious thing where I'm seeing you take your first steps into the hobby that I did 10 years ago, and see your happiness, your excitement. I got a new mini, got a new paint, got to try it. And then seeing, that first mini you've done, seeing the 10th mini you've done, seeing you in 2 years painting minis, seeing your first commission work you did when you're really excited that someone wants to pay you for your art. These things, they motivate me because I was where you are, or maybe the guy who posted that freaking Blood Raven, right? I'm like, dude, I'm trying to drop F-bombs here on YouTube, but that is stupid good. What are you doing? What are you doing to my stream? Are you learning anything from me? You just like hanging out. And that's why I think people enjoy like company. They get motivated when other people have similar interests. It's not just about the quality of art you put out. It's not just about the effort. It's just about being happy and doing art. I can't enjoy your art and get motivated if you're not painting. You can't sit here and listen to me ramble for however many minutes if I'm not making content. If I'm not putting up a video. You can't watch me paint models on stream if I don't paint models on stream. So finding motivation and inspiration in nature, connecting with that, letting it flow through you and get you excited to try new effects or think about how what you do relates to the real world is one thing. Looking at other people's art, getting motivation from what they do, and getting excited to give them motivation to grow and become better artists, or seeing someone who is beyond you in skill level and it's where you aspire to be, or you just want to get motivation to try some of the things they're doing. Those are good things, but perhaps some of it's just a psychological thing where we all deep down, whether we feel it or not, we want and need to be happy. Seeing someone else happy, seeing someone sharing their work and excited about it, hopefully gets you guys excited to paint and share yours. And it's a symbiotic relationship. It is why on Instagram, or not Instagram, on Twitch, it's why Sundays are our hobby hangout, our community showcase. It's so that for a moment, however brief or long it may be, once a week, once a month, however often we're able to convene, currently it's once a week, we are able to share work from the community so that in a live format, not just on Instagram and Facebook and in Discord and all that stuff, in a live format, I can engage with you, look at your work. Others from the community can look at your work and type in chat together and talk about it to get motivated so that perhaps you will try something new. You've seen something new. You've been introduced to a new artist, made a new friend, but perhaps you go, I like what that guy did. This makes me feel good. I want to build something, convert something, paint something this week, play a game this week, and I want to share my happy experience with the community. And now you've gone from being motivated and inspired by nature and people's interactions with you to now being the person who's motivating and inspiring others. And I can't tell you enough, I can't emphasize enough how important and empowering that is to know that you are motivating others and trying to be a positive influence on them. You are literally embodying being this hobby that you want to be a part of. You're being that hobby ambassador, that thing that I talk about at the end of every stream. And on that note, I think that's a pretty good ending point for today's Tap Talk. I feel pretty good. I hope that this has just been a nice ramble for you guys to listen to while you're painting models, assembling stuff, or you just want to listen. I hope it's made you think, put things in perspective. Next time you get in the car to go drive, you're going to work in the morning, maybe the sun's rising, you're watching it, it's going up. You see it peek through the clouds. Look at the colors. Don't take it for granted. Don't just be like, there's a blue sky and there's white clouds and a yellow sun. What colors do you see when the sun is rising? It's not just yellow and orange. There's a lot more there. What colors do you see as the sun's peeking through the clouds? Maybe it's an overcast day. Maybe it's a day where it's about to rain. You're seeing the grays and the blues and the blacks. Maybe you're seeing a beautiful sunset. And you're seeing the reds, yellows, oranges, the golds, the pinks. As it transitions into dusk, you see the blue, the blacks, the grays. Perhaps you're looking at the snow-covered hills. You're looking at the change of the season, the leaves fall. Maybe you're looking at Instagram. Maybe you're looking at other people's art. Maybe you're looking at somebody's face who's doing art and they look really excited and happy. Think about how art relates to you, how those things motivate you, and hopefully how you motivate others. And just feel good about your art. Get motivated, paint models, and feel good. As always, folks, I'd like to encourage you guys to like this video, drop a comment if I'm full of crap or you just want to sound off and leave me some information below, talk with me. If you haven't already, ding that little bell so you get alerts when I put up new content. If you enjoyed this, you want to help support the channel, make sure you check out deathrodesigns.com. Coupon code GETAMPS10 will save you 10% on any products there. And if you want to help really support the content and help keep the Twitch going and help the videos flow more freely here on YouTube, check out my Patreon page. Any contribution, however big or small, really does help. You guys are helping me pay bills, helping me procure more equipment for streaming and video purposes, and I can't express my gratitude enough. So I hope you guys are having an awesome week. I look forward to having our next Tap Talk where I just kind of ramble with you guys. Perhaps at some point we'll have a guest on here. Who knows? Things are kind of developing, but I'm getting it off here before I continue to ramble. So as always, keep painting those models, keep rolling those dice, and I will catch you guys next time.